All right. Well, we are going to get started. I am Candice Gliatto. I am the Director of Education and Coaching here at Qnity. And I am so excited to be leading this season three strategy series webinar because it really is inspired by something that was becoming very real in my own experience as a salon owner, and of course, in the work that I do with salon leaders, salon and spa leaders and owners all over the country. We're seeing these trends around getting back to the basics. And today we are going to unpack some of those most prominent trends. Now, before we get into that, a little bit, I want to hear from you guys. So keep that chat open. All right. How long have you been a leader in the beauty and wellness industry? How long have you been in the game? I'm curious. I want to know. I got my license, 23 years ago. I started doing hair, became a leader in 2009, so 17 years in. And a lot can change in 17 years. So let me go ahead and open up the chat here. Go ahead and put it in there. How long have you all been at it? 20 years from Sherry. Okay, I love it. So think about this job, 10 years. Thank you, Cheyenne. And think about this work that we're doing. And think about it when you first started. Do you ever feel like you have a completely different job, right? The intention, the outcome that we're going for is the same, but the approach requires a completely different skill set than it required long ago because this industry and all industries, they change fast. And as leaders, our job is to adapt. So I'm curious, if you were to think about when you first got started, how much change have you experienced since that first year? Would you say you've done a full 180? Has it done a full 360 where it's back to where we started? Go ahead and put that in the chat too. I want you to really just sit with this and think, how much have I really experienced? How much change have I experienced since I got started? And while you're doing that, I just want to to give a moment and think, how do we get here? Why did this change so much? Well, we've been through a lot. Okay, a lot has happened. Good things and challenging things. Of course, we have the COVID era, right? That was where we were all encouraged to pivot. Remember that one? Pivot, pivot, pivot. I was so triggered by that word by the time we started to come out of that era. But the reality is that as salon and spa leaders, we were in a position where we did have to pivot. And it wasn't just related to COVID, it was related to being an employer, it was related to offering services during a time where the market shifted. And both us as leaders and our team have experienced a significant amount of change. In fact, 73% of organizations are now at or beyond change saturation, meaning like we can't keep adding more, like we have to stabilize for a little while, right? The average employee now experiences 10 planned changes a year. That's 5 times more than the change that they experienced a decade ago was. So if you're sharing, and I do want to just check in on the chat and see what your thoughts were. Yeah. So heading to a full three, Sherry says two 360s. That's really interesting. So coming from somebody that's been in the game for 20 years, two 360s. And Cheyenne is leading right into a full 360 right now. I can relate. I'm starting to feel that pull, which really was the inspiration behind today's share around getting back to the basics. When things put us in a state of having to pivot or change, and we have to reinvent the wheel, and then those chapters start to stabilize and we start to head back down to the baseline, we have to remember to dust off some of our old tactics because they were founding approaches for a reason, right? Foundational approaches for a reason. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And one thing that I like to share is that absolutely, as a coach and an educator in this industry, I'm seeing this in salons across the country and I'm experiencing it firsthand in my own salons. Things are shifting and it's good news. Okay. Sometimes when we think about change and all the ways that we have to pivot, we get nervous, we get anxious. I really wanted to highlight some of the things that are shifting to a place that really kind of highlight our strengths as an employee-based salon or spa. How can we lean into this and really leverage our business and grow? So, I'm going to share with you 5 back to the basics things that I want you to consider as it relates to varying functions within your business. Now, these are trends that we've seen and trends that I've seen myself too. First one is a shift related to the mindset around growth. This is something, if you're like me and you have a lot of team members that have been with you for maybe in that 5-year range, they're starting to experience, maybe for the first time in their career, a little bit of a slowdown, right? Now, it doesn't mean that there's no clients, but they really have gone from being this kind of order taker, like get in line. We had this abundance of clients for a really long time for good reason too, and I'll unpack that in just a moment, to now having to hustle, having to be that rainmaker, really having to get them in. And so get new clients in and get their clients to come back. They're really having to focus on building sustainable business for themselves. Okay, our team are, and we as leaders are having to really ground them in those growth driving best practices. So here's what's happened. And I was reading about this as I was preparing for today. Post COVID, we saw a significant decrease in the amount of service providers, right? So everybody was out looking for new service providers. And so the pool was bigger, right? And now that's starting to stabilize. The number of service providers is going back up. And so there's more people for our clients to see, and it's gotten a little bit more competitive. So that wait list that we all got to enjoy for so long is now gone. That's the shift. And for a lot of our team members, they haven't had this experience. That's been the majority of their career, is somebody is in their chair, in their treatment room. And so now we've got to guide them through this. So the action is to reignite the hustle. Okay. And even the word hustle has been kind of frowned upon. But I really want us to look at this as hustle that is healthy, hustle that drives our business forward, not hustle that causes burnout and people to be fried. We learned that that doesn't work. This is about being intentional around the way that we approach our business. So this is for us as leaders. We're going to be intentional about driving traffic into our business, and we are going to guide and mentor our team to be intentional as intrapreneurs, which is somebody who runs a business within a business. They're going to be asking for referrals. We've got to get them unshy. If they have a new client that comes in and enjoys their service, they want to ask that new client to send in their friends. That's how we're going to build our business. We want to challenge our team to prioritize pre-booking. That was another thing that during the overflow era, pre-booking became something that people weren't really interested in. What? No, that is a foundational best practice to drive growth. And remembering that consultations are key. The more curious we can guide our service providers to be, the more opportunities that are going to open up for them as it relates to their sales, whether it's products, add-ons, upgrades, referrals. All of our growth driving behaviors are things that can come up in that consultation. So remember that steadiness and consistency is going to win. You've got the recipe for growth, driving client count and average ticket through referrals, rebooking, and retention, driving average ticket through products, pricing, and add-ons. Just keep that game plan in place and drive it day in, day out, and that consistency is going to get you far. Now, if you're looking for a way to ignite a little bit more excitement, I do want to encourage you to participate in the National 17% Growth Challenge, which is Qnity's national growth challenge, meaning we are going to train you and your team on how to really strengthen those muscles related to those sales driving basics and engage your team along with service providers across the country in leveling up and growing their sales by 17%. I'll share a little bit more about that with you later. Now, the next back to the basic thing to consider is around recruitment. If you are an employee-based salon, now the pendulum is swinging. Recruitment is in our favor. I am going to challenge you all to own your advantage as a team-based environment. Your advantage is stability. So here's the shift. We're starting to see those folks that wanted to go solo move back to employee-based salon. They're wanting an employee-based environment. Why is that? Because it's predictable, it's stable. What the call to action for us as leaders and owners of these more stable businesses is to market that stability. That is your selling point. Sell the benefits of a career path, of leadership support, of community, and predictability, because those are things that are hard to find in a solo environment right now. This is your competitive edge. So let's get back to the basics and really own our model, because in a world that feels uncertain, people are craving stability, and that's what we offer. That's your strength. The next back to basic foundation here is around finance and really leaning in to financial mindfulness. This is a non-negotiable. Things are tight these days. I won't deny that for 1 second. And so it's more important than ever that we really have our eyes on every dollar coming in and out of our business. I like to say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. What are the best practices that you have in place to measure and manage your money day in, day out, week in, week out? So what was the shift? Well, there was a lot of waves, surges, relief, support, things that didn't provide a lot of consistency as it related to cash flow and profitability. Those are now gone, and they may have floated us, but now we've got to create stability. The action is to look at money in and money out, week in, week out. Here's how I recommend you do that. Every single week, look at your sales from the week previous. How did it go? Look ahead at the week to come. What money needs to go out? And what am I going to do about it? If the money in and the money out ratio is not where you need it to be, what's the action that you are going to take? Everybody here, I'm challenging you to take a forward-focused approach to driving profitability and healthy cash flow. That requires awareness, a plan, not just having the plan, but executing the plan, and then repeat. Look at your numbers, build a plan, execute the plan, and do it again every single week. So that forward-focused approach is a must. So eyes on your finance function at all times. Now, if this is an area of opportunity for you, one, you're not alone. Most people rate the finance function as the one that gives them the most anxiety. 70% of beauty and wellness professionals have some form of math or numbers anxiety. One of the things that we do here at Qnity is we try and remove all of the noise. We make financial management as simple as possible. And we have a system that's designed not only to level up your financial literacy, but also to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Put systems and tools and best practices in place that really move your finance function along. So one of the things that we offer here at Qnity is Money SBO, our foundational financial management system. There's 5 modules that include your foundations, which is all about understanding the key financial statements and terms, then getting the numbers, meaning having them in your hands, literally, and understanding them. Then understanding what the numbers are telling you. That's the behind module. And then we move into plan, where you learn how to take that forward focused approach. And lastly, profit, where you learn how to continue to drive that top line. So if this is an opportunity for you, I want to challenge you to engage in Money SBO, because it could be the financial foundational skill set that really allows you to take your business to the next level. Now, our next back to the basics technique here is around new talent development. What has happened? I'm curious if you guys that are here tuned in live have had the same experience that I've had around new talent development. How has your approach to technical training changed in the last 10 years? What are you doing differently now than you did 10 years ago? Those of you that said that you've done a full 360, what did you change that in that 180? Where are you now? One of the things that we've seen the most is an expedited program, right? Everybody wants to be from, first day to on the floor as quickly as possible. Why is that? Well, we saw a significant amount of turnover and we wanted to get new talent prepared and ready. Also, the expectation of new team members coming in was that they were on the floor quick. Here's where I want you to consider where you need to get back to the basics, is finding that magic in the middle, that and. This is something we talk about a lot at Qnity, right? It's not mastery or efficiency, it's mastery and efficiency. And where is the sweet spot related to time from new talent to on the floor? So here's the shift. The recruitment crisis kind of forced us to fast track new talent, right? Here's the action. We've got to reclaim the training standard. I will speak for myself here. When I was in that position where I had to get new talent on the floor faster, there was less practice, less experience, right? And no matter how strong our training program is, more repetition created stronger stylists. At the same time, the expectation of our clients was starting to go up, right? Because perceived value is everything right now. So I want you to consider how you're going to balance that speed to the floor so that it doesn't end in failure, right? In a world where that perceived value is everything, taking too aggressive of a shortcut can be damaging. And that doesn't just hurt our salon reputation, it can hurt the confidence of our service providers, which can lead to burnout and ultimately not retaining our team. Does anybody see opportunity to rethink their training program timelines? I know I do. So my goal is this. I'm not going back to slow. I don't want to go backwards, but I am going to go back to rigorous because I do want to make sure I uphold my own standards. All right. Can anybody relate to that one? That was the one I was feeling the most, but I do a lot of work in the education function in my business. So I was like, oh, this is hitting close to home. All right. The next one really relates to our operations. Okay. Standards are our edge. And I think that there was a long period of time where we chose our battles. Have you ever said that as a leader? I'm going to choose my battles, and that's not one of them. I'm going to challenge you all to choose this battle and reclaim your points of difference. The shift here is really around, not letting our standards slip because we didn't want to make team uncomfortable or we didn't want to rock the boat. The action is hold our team to our standards and make sure that we have standards, right? If your salon or spa experience isn't systemized, here's the call. That's the call to action. Systemize it. What does it look like? Remember that standards create pride and pride creates retention. If you're feeling hesitant to hold your team to very specific standards because you're worried it's going to cause friction, I want you to think about all the team members that you have that do uphold your standards and how important it is to them to see that expectation being set across the board. You might find that an increased pride is going to lead to increased retention and increased sales, increased success for your business. So, the call to action, don't lower the bar to keep the peace, raise the bar to build that pride. So these are just a few things that are on my to-do list this year as it relates to getting back to those foundational standards, whether it's education and training, operations, financial management, how we drive the business forward. I'm curious from those of you that are here live, where do you need a system reset? What are some things that worked really well for you before that might need to get dusted off and brought back into the forefront of how we're operating now? Consider the five functions: marketing, education, people, operations, and finance. These are the five key areas where activity happens within our business. What are some things you may have let go of over the last handful of years that could come back and make a really positive impact on your business? Anybody have anything come into mind? If so, put it in the chat. Also, if one of the five things that I shared today around driving growth, around that sweet spot related to training timelines, around upholding your standards, recruiting through the lens of stability and a team-based environment, the benefits of stability in a team-based environment, and really committing to that financial management ritual of having your eyes on money in and money out, week in, week out. Which ones of those might need to come back for you? All right, so that's your call. So I want to read the chat here. We introduce mailers to thank guests or invite them back after a long break. We are seeing more success than using emails. That is a fantastic share back as it relates to back to the basics. So instead of an email inbox that might be overflowing with things, we've got, what do we call it now? Snail mail? Snail mail, it stands out. There's less things going to that inbox than there is to our online, our email inbox. That's a great share. So that was related to marketing. If you've got something related to another function, put it in the chat or write it down on a piece of paper because it's time to dust that guy off. And I'll leave you with this. Success is not about doing 1,000 things. You don't have to uncover everything that you've ever tried, right? It's not about doing 1,000 things. It's about doing the five right things 1,000 times. So I really want you to lean into the power of consistency and steadiness because that alone will take you very, very far. Now, I did share with you a little bit about the 17% growth challenge, and we actually have a quarter to 17% growth challenge happening right now. And salon and spa service providers all over the country are seeing huge results just from being a part of this because they're really leaning into awareness. They're tracking, targeting, and driving their sales every single week. We do have another 17% challenge coming up. And as we talked about, related to getting our team back into that mindset of really engaging in driving their own growth, this can be the catalyst. This is how you can relaunch being an entrepreneur in your salon. So with this, we challenge your salons and your team members to increase their total sales by 17% over the period of 13 weeks for the quarter. Now, I want to just share with you what that could look like. Let's say even just half of your team grows. This small step could lead to some really big results. If you're a single location and you have 10 employees that average, say, $2,000 a week in sales, if just 5 of them hit 17% growth each quarter by the end of the year, that'd be an additional $150,000 in sales. Now, if you're a larger multi-location salon, you've got 50 employees that average 2,000 a week. If half of those team members hit 17% growth through each quarter through the year, that's an additional $740,000 in additional sales. Think about the difference that would make in your business. So if you have not engaged in the 17% challenge yet, I want to challenge you to do so. That could be the kickstart that your team needs. If you're a Qnity client, participating in the 17% challenge is complimentary. If you're new to Qnity, scan the QR code and get involved in our community. We would love to meet you. Now, some other things that you can consider as it relates to working with us here at Qnity is circle. One of the things that I love about doing these webinars is seeing the shares on the chat. For example, Cheyenne sharing about how the success that she had with mailers. The Circle program is designed to be a place that you can do just that. You can get with salon and spa leaders and share ideas, challenges, and best practices, and really just learn from each other. One of the things we like to say at Qnity is that the knowledge is in the room. When we have the chance, you think about you go to a conference and you go out to lunch with somebody and you learn one thing that they do in your business that you go back and implement that transforms your own business. That's what Circle is all about. And if you haven't experienced it yet, we do have a unique opportunity that's tomorrow on April 28th at 2 p.m. Central for an open circle. And so if you scan the QR code here, you can register, participate in the open circle, and get a little taste of what it's like to be part of a peer sharing group. Now, with that, we're going to wrap up our time together for the day, but I am going to stay on in case anybody has any questions, whether it's related to a new way to work with Qnity or a place that you want to get back to the basics. I'll be here for you. If you tuned into the recording, thanks so much for joining, and we look forward to having you either in the 17% challenge or in one of our circle groups. All right. Wishing everybody a fabulous week. Hi, Karen. Thanks for being here. All right. Looks like no questions, so I'm going to let you all go. Have a fabulous week. See you all soon. Bye.